Hello, Georges Collinet with you on Afropop Worldwide from PRX.
And I'm DJ Kix in Melbourne, Australia.
That's right. You might have thought that we were heading to Ethiopia, but not quite. We took the wrong subway. Just kidding. This is Gima Shakarli by the Melbourne band, Black Jesus Experience.
Why not Black Jesus, We're not really a religious person, like we're not that kind of a group, but why not? Everything is possible. Who knows, So I love the sound of it and it sounded good. It's beautiful.
That's Enushu, the lead singer of the band Black Jesus Experience. Well, we'll hear more from her and others in this edition of Afropop Worldwide, Africa in Melbourne, with my co-host, DJ Kix.
Thanks, Josh. That's right. I'll be your guide, introducing you to some of Melbourne's best African acts, from traditional to jazz fusion, hip-hop and South Sudanese rock. There's a reason why Melbourne is said to be Australia's music and cultural capital. I'm DJ Kix.
And I'm Georges Collinet with you on Afropop Worldwide. Right now you're hearing Maskaram Setaba by Mulatu Astadke and Black Jesus Experience, taken from their latest album, To Know Without Knowing.
Black Jesus Experience, or BJX, is a 12-piece band renowned for its funky fusions of jazz, hip-hop, and traditional Ethiopian music. The band members themselves also reflect a cultural mix of Ethiopian, Australian, and Zimbabwean backgrounds.
yes, we gon' run the red. Big Monk, the fire is evident. Get them up, high cone represent. Loud my brethren, Digital Africa, open the aperture front to the back of the club, come mash it up. Future roots in the building, Sci-Fi, Mr. Monk up in it. Wait up, hold up, wait just a minute. Quarter ambulance, we came to kill it. Vibes in the dance, I'm catching the feeling. Independent and living it, rip that. Syntax kids, back with another rap. Air fashions and fads, keep it classic in hand. Sand shit, tan trick, the man is the mister. With the gift of the gab, fly by kinetic, your rap is synthetic. I leave it powder wetted like a watermelon fetish. Soar like Aztec, sexual magic. Mr. Monk about to fire up the chalice. Vibe with synergy, the high rates of energy. Put it up for chap ones, memory, me, palma, make us so casa. We had every drum and a rock and that. Boom! Mozambique, Brazil, all crew. One love Africa, we keep on the move. We're loud too. BJX, live on the red from the north to the south, on the east to the west. Come correct, champion sound. One test, yes!
I caught up with lead singer Inushu to find out more about BJX and her life in Melbourne.
My house name is Inushu, which is everybody called me a born an artist in Ethiopia. Came here in 1996, but before that I was in Egypt and yeah.
And first impressions of Melbourne?
Very empty, very quiet, It's, Africa's like people's everywhere and your neighbors and your families. And it's just the entire of the city is always with people. But here was a very, now 24 years ago, when I look back, it's better these days. But when I was arriving here, one, there is no any Africans that you will see regular. And two, the city is very quiet and empty and it feels a bit ghost town, to be honest. So I was a bit shocked. Yeah, it was quite a strange place because you don't really see people look like you. That was my biggest shock. Even I heard that there is the native people here as black people, but I couldn't meet them, see them for a long, long time. But then in the same time, I keep myself with singing and cooking and cleaning the house that it keep me a little bit alive, I would say. The last 20 years, more Africans come in, migranted people and other European people, I would say also. Yeah, more people coming in from all over the place, I would say. So it's more crowded and a lot of cars. You see a lot of people in the street. It's quite good. It's much, much better.
As Inushu settled into Melbourne, a chance encounter with Peter, a founding member of BJX and also now Inushu's husband, sparked the beginning of her professional music journey. I
was sharing a house with another Australian guy who played guitar, and he's a friend of Peter. So Peter, he comes around our house and they are doing whatever they're doing, and I don't really speak the English. I don't really understand those days. So I just keep singing at the back. I would be in the kitchen or in the backyard. and they hear me, and they really do encourage me. And then Peter, he invited me to the studio. They were recording, and I heard myself that day, and I just go, oh, okay, I can sing, not bad, actually.
Not bad at all.
It's like almost improvising I'm doing. So it could be that Sunday what I feel, or what that gig, what I was going through, it can be happy, it can be saddest things,
That song was Lee J from the album To Know Without Knowing. I asked about one of my personal favorites from the same album, a song called Kulun Mankweleshi.
Direct when we translate it would be how beautiful the girl she is. It's a wedding song. It's a family wedding song. And in my house, my grandmothers, both of them, they do sing that song, and it's stay in my head. So it's like how beautiful the woman she is, even without makeup. It's like she looks like she's got a makeup on, and cool is like the pencil on her eyes. My daughter and my sister, they did the back singing part of it, and my sister, they know the same as me, so we just help and we teach my daughter a little bit, and she did a really good job. So it's a wedding song.
Shete
Enushu's culture is ever present in the music, and at an Ethiopian restaurant that she and husband Peter own. It's aptly called The Horn. You can catch the band performing there on most Sunday evenings and treat yourself to a traditional Ethiopian meal. It's a vibe.
I want to keep the culture. I want to have my culture. I can't live without it. Like I said, when I arrived, it was quite empty, and it took me so long to find friend or, family or little community. So I was still struggling. Even when I had a child, I was still struggling about the loneliness and the empty part of this world. So maybe I might feel better. I might do something if I just keep smelling the food, feeding people, talking to them about where I came from. I can learn the language more, and I can show to my kids also, this is how I grow up. This is what I've been eating, So we found a small place and we started, So we're very lucky. I'm very lucky. More than him, I think I'm very lucky that I still live with my culture and share the culture with other people. So that it makes me to do more, and I'm happy. My brain is happy. My body is happy, and it's just something I can heal myself with, and somebody I would like to share with as well.
Mankweleshi.
Sounds fantastic. Now, on to Melbourne's airwaves.
Yes, if you want to listen to African music on the radio in Melbourne, you can tune in to PBS 106.7 FM, a community radio station where I host a program called the Afro Turn Up. It's a show about contemporary African music, so that's all your Amapiano, Afro House, Afro Beats, and Afro Pop. You can also listen to another show called Flight 1067 to Africa, presented by Stanley Goma. Stanley always starts the show with Salif Keita's Africa.
I'm from Brazzaville. I was born in a place called Pointe Noire and grew up. Pointe Noire is on the coast, and then I came to Brazzaville. As you know, there are two countries called Congo. There's the DRC Congo and Brazzaville Congo, and so I grew up in the Brazzaville side of Congo, and came to Melbourne in '89. And the first impression was in terms of African music and African content on radio or TV, there was not much. But the interesting thing was that the community was so small that you pretty much got to know what seemed to be everybody at the time, by face or by name. So back in '89, there were a few gigs, a few bands, and but not a lot by way of radio programs. That was kind of fully dedicated to music that came from Africa. In my early days, actually, when I started on PBS, I was on a reggae program, which is quite interesting. We were playing a little bit of African music and obviously African reggae, Alpha Blondy, Lucky Dube, that kind of music at the time, but it was predominantly a reggae program. So my initial involvement at PBS was filling in on the reggae program or assisting with the reggae program. And then over time, of course, I got my own program and then decided that no, African music is really what was my heartbeat, my interest. And so, that's how it started, really. It was also back in the sort of anti-apartheid struggle, and there were demonstrations and a lot of interest in what was happening in South Africa at the time. And so much so that in Australia, in certain sections of the Australian community, there was a genuine interest in seeing that there is a change in South Africa. And so, at least for South African music, particularly, the music that people like Huma Sekela, Mira Makeba, Lady Smith, Black Mambanzo were playing, that kind of music already had a following here.
That was the late Lucky Dube from South Africa with House of Exile. Now, 30 years on, Stanley's Show is the longest-running radio program dedicated to African music in Australia. How does he keep his content fresh?
The way I tend to approach it, I suppose, is that I don't just look for what's really doing well, so to speak. I'm open to whatever I can lay my hands on. And so, for example, I get music from Uganda, and very often, even in Africa itself, it's not music that is really well known and very popular, but I make space for it because it provides an opportunity for people to discover music from that part of the continent. And more recently, I've sort of been discovering more music from Botswana as well, Angola. But I'm also very keen to explore some of the older styles as well. So, for example, I still find the music of someone like Thomas Mfumo very fascinating. Even though it's not music from now, it's music that carries a certain cultural content of a certain era. It's an important part of African history and African culture. I look for whatever music that speaks of Africa to Africans, predominantly, first of all, and to the rest of the world, whether it's of today or projecting into the future. So I don't necessarily limit myself any time sort of period. I look for whatever speaks of Africa.
This is Banile by Mate. That's the Melbourne African Traditional Ensemble. Stanley is the founding director of the group.
It did occur to me that it would make a lot of sense at one stage, even when we have enough African musicians, particularly those that play traditional instruments, to come together and play music of the various African music traditions or the various African instruments together as Africans, just to share that experience of an Ethiopian musician playing with a South African musician, like having the mira alongside the kra or the masenko or the balafon. That kind of idea that brought traditional African instruments to share and learn together and try and compose music together, as opposed to always trying to bring an African instrument into a Western music context or a Western music concept. So that was the aim, is to really bring people together and experience Pan-Africanism in music in a country that is far away from home, but we have that opportunity here. It's the kind of conversations that we need to have as Africans, the kind of cultural experiences that we need to be engaging in, because we're not just people that engage with Western culture. We should be having that lateral and African conversation, a conversation that will interest many others around the world, but it's predominantly how do we express ourselves in a way that tells our story in our own voice. And it doesn't mean that when our story is told by others, it has no value. No, that has value as well, but that should not replace us telling our own story.
And here is Famba by Mate, the Melbourne African Traditional Ensemble.
Famba utavuya, famba utavuya, famba utavuya, famba utavuya, seguri mwana. Famba utavuya, ungeni rivali weno. Utanitsunduka, famba utavuya. Famba utavuya, seguri mwana. Utanitsunduka, ungeni rivali weno. Ungeni rivali, 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 ungeni rivali.
So, who are the listeners of Stanley's show?
Melbourne, as you know, is quite a diverse, multicultural city, very cosmopolitan. So broadly speaking, I would say members of the African community, young and old, people who have lived or worked or traveled in Africa, and people that generally have an interest in music that comes from other parts of the world. Some people actually use the program to introduce their own children, particularly those of African background, as a way of connecting with African culture, in the hope that it would in some way at least make them feel part of it, so to speak, really, because they're growing up away from the continent, and this is just something that gives them that instant connection with Africa. So it's African music presented by an African voice. So for kids growing up here, it's important to experience that, to experience the culture, not from the perspective of somebody who has a passing interest in it, but somebody who lives it, feels it, and it's deeply part of you. We don't even examine it. It's just who we are because we grew up in Africa. We're born and bred in Africa. And so as a result, it's part of our makeup. Whereas for someone growing up here, sadly, this is something that we do see from time to time. It is sometimes even a rejection of that. You don't want to be that for a period of time. And then as you grow up, you think, well, maybe there is something in this that I need to explore. And some of them do, in the end, explore it, look into it, and find a way to connect with it. But there are a few that really prefer not to know that side of their culture because it's not very well painted in mainstream media. And so my view is that if I can do it in a very positive way that can make them feel that, you know, it's pretty cool, it's all right. It's fine. There is a certain perspective that is very positive and very happening that they can connect with.
Baba Masigila Utambaile Ntate Masigila Ufambile Baba Masigila.
Identity. It's something that I often think about. I grew up in Zimbabwe, surrounded by my language and culture. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like growing up here, not having those cultural references around me. How does one reconcile their African heritage when they didn't grow up on the continent?
That's up next, as well as a little hip-hop and South Sudanese rock in today's program, Africa in Melbourne. Remember, you can visit our website, afropop.org, for a filmed live performance of Mate and a music video by BJX. I'm Georges Collinet.
I'm DJ Kicks.
And you're listening to Afropop Worldwide from PRX.
When the book is closed on me, I just want the pages to look like I feel. All you need to do is just keep doing what you want to do. That's it. Stop worrying about it. Oh, it ain't the tempo, it ain't the knot. Who cares? Do it. Connect. That's it.
Yeah, hey. I wear a double XL, cause I do it real big. Hey, I wear a double XL. Cause I do it real big. Ay, I wear a double XL. Chill, cause I do it real big. Ay, I wear a double XL. Cause I do it, yeah. I'm trying to make every record I write a magnum opus. I'm creating, paying no attention to stats and quotas. I'm doing me and people still want to snap a photo.
My name is Jerry Agbinya. I make music under the name Ijale. And yeah, a producer, vocalist, performer, sound designer, DJ, anything that has to do with sound, I pretty much try and do it.
I'm feeling good, kinda like I can't fail. I'm eating good brown rice with a kale. I'm chasing cream, so I'm fresh, never stale. Hey,
This year, Jerry, or Ijale, was picked as one of the best emerging Australian artists in Ticketmaster's New for 2021 list.
I was born in Melbourne. My parents emigrated here in 1987. My dad came here for a degree in computational engineering, and my 3 elder siblings were all born in Nigeria, and I was the only one of my siblings who was born here. But we quickly moved to Sydney when I was like 3, and that was where I grew up for a major portion of my life until I was, I don't know, maybe like 24, 25, something like that.
Real big, ay, I wear a double XL, chill, cause I do it real big, ay, I wear a double XL, cause I do it real, yeah, whoa.
I asked Jerry how he relates to his African roots as a first-generation Nigerian Australian.
That's definitely a journey that I started more consciously pretty recently, and I'm still on right now. But when I was younger, I was really sheltered in terms of celebrating that side of myself because I didn't really know a lot of African people who weren't in my family. It was me, my brothers, my parents, and then my cousins who lived down the road who were literally like blood related to me. And outside of that, except for the people who I played in soccer and I would see them every so often, I didn't really know any other Black people. And people in my neighborhood didn't know any other people except for us. So it became easier to assimilate rather than to assert that side of my culture. And, you know, my dad and my mum were too busy working to answer those questions for me. I feel like that's a huge thing now that I'm talking to a lot of people who had similar experience to me growing up, is that they didn't know how to ask these questions or open up to their family because I think we were all quite focused on just like surviving. So that was a big part of it. And then when I got a little bit older and I started to more explicitly seek out those things is when I realized that I kind of wasn't really being true to myself, or I was just using crutches that made me socially acceptable to find a place in the social circles that I was in at the time, rather than just be who I was authentically.
So how did Jerry get into making music?
I'd always been into music during high school and stuff. I'd play in bands with friends, but when I first started to use like Fruity Loops, for example, and I realized that I could do everything from top to bottom. And I don't know, something about being able to do everything myself just made me really fall in love with the thing. So I spent like a year and a half just in my room, just teaching myself how to do it, watching all of these YouTube clips of bedroom producers and producers that I love now, just making music whilst like pressing a bunch of buttons and turning a bunch of faders and stuff. And it just looked so cool and it sounded amazing. So I wanted to be Flying Lotus. And so I learnt everything I could about production. I bought a MIDI controller that was pretty much exactly what he used to use back then. And I listened to a lot of alternate electronic kind of stuff. So I learned how to make beats by trying to emulate all of the people that I really liked. Who was on the Brain Feeder records and all of the stuff that was coming out of LA at the time in like 2006 to 2010, and which was a really good way to learn production because it was really technically complicated, I think, that type of music.
And then after a move from Sydney to Melbourne, in 2017, Jerry came out with his debut single, Heretics. You're now hearing the instrumental in the background.
When I was first making that song, Heretics, I was definitely listening to a lot of Fela Kuti and Tony Allen, a lot of high life music from Nigeria and Ghana, and also just a lot of different, more unknown bands that I really had to trawl for on the internet. Like there's this really amazing psych band from Nigeria from the 60s or 70s called Witch. And I just liked how you could so clearly hear the connection to African-American sounds and stylings. So the influence between those two parts of the diaspora was really interesting to me. So I think that was like the first try at me trying to figure out what I wanted to incorporate that could really personify me as a person.
Hi, you have reached 1-800-WUSA. If your call is urgent, please press 1. And if you're finding yourself feeling a little more chill, please hold, and one of our microaggression specialists will be with you shortly.
After releasing a series of singles over 3 years, Jerry dropped his debut EP, Wildly Disparate Sounds, in 2020. The EP was well received, especially the track Hotlines, which is about some of the microaggressions that he's faced.
But see, the reason I'm out late at night is cause I might hate getting it. But I'm just walking home, I am not scoping out your residence. I'm threatening with no other weapon but my melanin. Sediment, rumble when I'm coming through your premises. Sack swinging like I'm Santa, I got hella gifts. And when he step up in the room, he like an elephant. So all you haters, you can miss me with that rhetoric. You really think you heaven sent you hella kid? Eyes up to the heavens, ignoring stop signs. Blowing my credit on microaggression hotlines. I never said this before, but today I got time. You gon' regret that of me when I finally got mine. Hey, and why you looking at me cockeyed and watching my stock ride? It's how we do it here on my side. I stick and move, I keep it clockwise. I'm stacking these knots high. It's how we move it here on my side.
In the meantime, please just don't kill anybody, okay? It's gonna be okay. We got you, man. It's gonna be okay, baby. It's all good. Just breathe, okay? Woosah. What happened, honey? You okay, baby? Was it on the train? Yeah, the 11. I know what you mean. Was it at work? Oh, okay. Oh, so the same girl from work. Child, sit down. Are you sitting?
Microaggressions. Well, the issues surrounding migration and identity are quite complex. Nonetheless, there's still a lot to celebrate and a real sense of optimism for the future.
Absolutely, Josh. And Aja Kwai, a South Sudanese singer and migration activist in Melbourne, has a lot to say on the matter in her most recent album, Let Me Grow My Wings. Here's the album title track, performed in English and Dinka.
question for your flag. What is your message? Why do you brag? I hope we speak for all of us, that we aren't alone. Doesn't matter where we came from, we can all share this home. Let me grow my wings so I can fly with you. Let me grow my wings so I can fly with you. And let me grow my wings so I can fly with you. Let me grow my wings so I can fly with you. And let me grow my wings so I can fly with you. What I'll punish you, don't matter. And now what do you say come true?
Ajak also includes a message of encouragement for the South Sudanese community in Australia in her song No One Like You. She sings about how education is the key to creating opportunity and building a new home.
You know I be bad, well I gotta be bad, well alone. You did a panda, I get out of get your way. We did a panda, I get out of get your way. You did a panda, I get out of get your way. When you got out here, and then you know, you got out here. You did a panda, I get out of get your way. We did a panda, I get out of get your way. You did a panda, I get out of get your way. We did a panda, I get out of get your way.
No conversation about African musicians in Melbourne would be complete without mentioning a Zambian-Australian MC who's taken the country by storm.
God at his finest, wonder why after man primates. Never underestimate your highness. Stripped in melanin, galaxy's finest. Put a bit of pressure on the spirit of the highest. Do it I will, do it I will. If they don't believe me, then you betcha I will. If they don't believe me, then you betcha I will. Better big up your love for the betcha I chill. Flow, oh my gosh, where man go? Oh my gosh, if a man see it, oh my gosh, I guess you never know what you got till it. Flow, oh my gosh, where man go? Oh my gosh, if a man see it, oh my gosh, I guess you never know what you got till it. What a man say he is, as a man think it's G's. Come and Louise, took a lot of effort just to get up from the heat. Daddy adolescent said he get up from the streets. Give them get the feet, let them go the feet. Fly him out of Africa, get the kids a breathe. Show them how the other half, how the world is. Show them how the other half, how the world is. Nah, they don't know me. They can't hold me. They box, they talk, I know they can't show. Please believe me. They deceive me. They flex, I know they can't see me.
This is OMG by Sampa the Great from the album The Return, which won several awards, including Best Hip Hop Release, Best Female Artist, and Best Independent Release at the 2020 Australian Recording Industry Association, or ARIA, Music Awards. And I tell you, I am a huge fan.
Where man go? Oh my gosh. If a man see me, oh my gosh. Guess you never know what you got till it's flow. Oh my gosh. Where man go? Oh my gosh. If a man see me, oh my gosh. Guess you never know what you got till it's flow. Oh my gosh. Where man go? Oh my gosh. If a man see me, oh my gosh. Guess you never know what you got till it's flow.
And this year, Sampa's featured on Angelique Kidjo's newest album release called Mother Nature and Tony Allen's posthumous album, There Is No End. Let's get into one of those tracks. It's called Stumbling Down by Tony Allen featuring Sampa the Great.
Just wanna see a side space, wanna see my space. I don't wanna be limited by race, age. I wanna see my face, I wanna see the corner on my face, not a place, space, rage. And I'm large and in charge, brave. I'm come far, I've been hard, pain. I got heart, I got bars, rain. I got heart, I got bars. I know I'm in the corner, I know I'm falling over, looking at my shoulder. Eh. I know I should've told you, I know I'm falling over, don't cross over. Eh. Always trying to take my pride, always trying to change my mind. Never wanna see me shine, always wanna see my grind. Said it's supposed to fall, I don't really see us fall. I feel that you go, please close the door, but you ought to know we gon' break all of it. Shit the same, shit not the same. I don't make the same, shit the same, shit not the same. I don't make the same, shit the same, shit not the same. I don't man up, and I'm stumbling down. I know I'm in the corner, I know I'm falling over, looking at my shoulder. I know I should've told you, I know I'm falling over, no crossover. Always trying to take my pride, wanna try and change my mind. Never wanna see me cry, never see me cry. Said it's supposed to fall, I don't really see us fall. I think that you go, please close the door, but you ought to know we gon' break all of those hinges. Why you wanna switch who you are? Why you always trying to find a better version, better than the last? Why you always bring up the past? Why you never realize vision always blurs till not? Ayy, I never said it's easy, never said you never stumble on the road, moon most easy. Ayy, always full of vision. Remember with the headlights on, she snakes with precision. The same shit, we not the same. It ain't the same shit, we not the same. Said it's supposed to fall, I don't really see us fall. I feel that you go, please close the door, but you ought to know we gon' break all of those hinges. Said it's supposed to fall, I don't really see us fall.
Sampa was not available for an interview this time around, but we hope to catch up with her at another time. In the meantime, here's what Stanley Goma from earlier on had to say.
Quite a lot of them come up in the time that I've been here. And I've been particularly excited and very grateful for the rise of Sampa the Great. That has been phenomenal. And she has reached a level in terms of recognition and acceptance beyond what any other African artist that I've seen in this country achieve. So she's right up there. It's wonderful. And the great news is that in almost every Australian main city, whether it's Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, or even in Canberra, there are up-and-coming young African artists who are really going places. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited about the future of African musicians.
Musicians like Jerry Agbinya, also known as Ijale, from early on in the program. Here he is again.
Compared to 2016 to now, yeah, the scene has definitely changed. I think there are so many different collectives and groups of artists at the moment who are doing really, really great stuff and who less afraid, it feels like, I think people are making really authentic music now, whereas I think before you had the 1 or 2 or 3 acts or groups or bands who were out in the forefront of that expression. But now I think in terms of where Melbourne is sitting now, I think it like earns the title of the music capital, especially in terms of people of color and the diverse level of creation that we've got going on here. It's amazing here.
And you can look out for Ijale's new mixtape coming out later this year. Well, we've come to the end of this week's program. I hope you enjoyed exploring Africa in Melbourne with me, DJ Kicks. I'll sign off the way I normally do on my own show by saying thank you for listening. Asante sana sebonya. And until next time, Sare Shakanak. Keep well.
Well, thank you, DJ Kicks, for the help with this program. Funding for Afropop Worldwide comes from the National Endowment for the Arts, which believes a great nation deserves great art, and from PRX affiliate stations around the US. And thank you for supporting your public radio station. Additional support for Afropop Worldwide comes from the World Music Method. Learn tribal fingerstyle guitar, Brazilian rhythms, Congolese bass, Latin American folk, Hindustani slide, and desert blues. The ultimate learning experience. worldmusicmethod.com. That's worldmusicmethod.com. And from Womex, the showcase, seminar, and marketplace for world and roots music. October 27 to the 31st in Porto, Portugal. More information at womex.com. And don't forget to visit afropop.org for a music video collage of the artists we featured today. You can also find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at AfropopWW. My Afropop partner is Sean Barlow. Sean produces our program for World Music Productions. Research and production for this program by DJ Kicks in Melbourne. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast, including radio programs and our Afropop Close-Up podcast series. And don't forget to join us next week for another edition of Afropop Worldwide. Our chief audio engineer is Michael Jones. Additional engineering by GC at the Syncopated Lair in Washington, D.C. Banning Air and CC Smith edit our website, afropop.org. Our director of new media is Ben Richmond, and I'm Georges Collinet.